So, where are you at? How you been?
I'm better. I struggled with, those things we were talking about before, and I kind of had to, I felt like I was really digging my heels into not accepting, that my ego seemed to be wanting to really, not accept anything, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I really had to sit and face it for a while, and I feel better. I feel like I went to kind of the other side with it. Mm-hmm. But it was hard. I mean, I really felt like I was just kind of was pushing it all away kind of thing. So it's been a bit, the last week or so has been a bit difficult, but I felt the last few days I really, I had to ask myself, do I want to suffer? Because this is what I've been doing for suffering again. And so the answer was no.
Mm-hmm. So the only alternative is then to face the pain that you're avoiding.
Yeah.
Running from, hiding from, distracting from, face the pain of what you think is so shitty, right? And I think that's, and then how do you resolve those feelings, right? So often people, they know they don't want to suffer anymore. And then they have to look at it's like, so in relation to body image, I know I don't want to have to diet. I don't want the obsessive compulsiveness. I don't want the binging. I don't want the purging. I don't want the exercise. I just don't want food to ruin and run my life. I don't want my weight and my body to be so important. I don't want to think about it anymore. So you want liberation from the suffering of having to do what you have to do to get relief, or to even just get some, to get whatever goal you're looking for, right? And so when you realize I'm done with the suffering, well, now you have to look at, well, what have you been suffering for? Well, because I can't accept my body. I can't accept fatness. So then you have to go into the pain of what a life of fatness would be like.
Yeah.
And as you go into that pain, you realize it's all an illusion. It was all made up bullshit from some narcissistic core of ego.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you have to question, do I really want people to like me for that reason? Do you really want people to, even if you could be thin, do you really want people to give you praise for that? Because it's fake. It's superficial.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I noticed that, everything came back. It was, not just one aspect, but it seemed like all of that. So it's, took me...
Everything came... What are you... In relation to the suffering or the freedom?
Yeah, the suffering. Everything came back. It wasn't... It seemed... It doesn't... It's not... It's like a package deal.
It is. Well, the guru I studied, Dr. Hawkins, would say when you're at that level of consciousness, it's very predictable, and everybody in that level is the same way. You feel the same things, you respond the same way. You're at a level of human consciousness that is really has nothing to do with you so much as it is that level of consciousness. So when you went back down into that I'm a victim position, you went down into that energy level that predictably feels the way it feels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it feels like you're so low that it's hard. You don't feel like you can get out of it.
Right? It's so true. Well, not questioning, because you're not questioning.
You're not questioning, and that's
the beliefs.
For a while. Yeah.
The beliefs that you're holding on to, because that's where the impossibility comes from. Because the belief you're holding on to, like dogma, not negotiable, it's like a universal truth of all, so to God, to the infinite space of the universe, then people are more important. So if you hold on to that belief, you're right.
Yeah.
You'll never recover. You'll always be a shameful, dark place of, pity party.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I know. I've been there. It feels like I will be permanently in a state of depression and self-loathing. because that belief is true.
Yeah.
So the only way to come out of that is to question the belief, which is really unraveling the dogma. Because dogma is a belief that is not to be questioned. You're to just believe it's true. No questions asked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you start actually asking questions like, well, is that really true if I have to live in an obese body? Is it really true if given the freedom of not caring about it or not having to fix it? Is it really true that my life will be permanently in hell? Because the life you're living in, trying to avoid those things, is in permanent hell. You're in hell.
Yeah.
Which hell is worse, the hell of suffering or the hell of pain that you're avoiding?
Yeah.
So that was something I know for me, it had to be very clear. And it sounds like that became very clear to you this week. If I don't stop, if I cannot accept this weight gain or my weight as it is, I have to suffer. What's the alternative? Is there an alternative to maintain that concept of thinner supremacy? Thinner, it doesn't even have to be thin anymore. It could just be thinner.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Yeah. So you cannot gain, which is still a form of thinner, right?
Yeah.
And so if you hold on to that and you hold yourself to it, is suffering, is there an alternative to suffering? No. There's no alternative. You have to continue to do what you've been doing. You have to devote yourself to food restriction. You have to do it diligently. You have to constantly maintain your eyeball on your weight or your size. You don't really get your freedom anymore. Then there's always that kind of primal anxiety that you'll always have because you're actually triggering that, first hierarchy of need psychologically, which is the desire to feel safe with food. So inherent to thin supremacy is food is dangerous. So you'll kind of always have anxiety underneath it all permanently forever until you die. Yeah, or until you let go of this belief system. Mm-hmm. So you come to that divide in the road, right? Where it's like, I can either keep on doing this, going this direction, which always goes in circles. I just always come in circles.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Or I go or I leave. Just leave this map altogether. And the risk of doing that is that your body's going to be what it's going to be, and people's opinion about it is going to be what it's going to be, and you're not going to care, control, or even make it important anymore.
Yeah.
The risk of that, based on the current model of brainwashing or programming around it, is no one will love you. That's what we're taught.
Yeah.
If you are not thin, you are worthless, and no one will love you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main.
That's the main program.
Yeah.
Or you'll die.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one makes me giggle.
It's ridiculous, yeah. But yeah.
That's painful.
Yeah, I think it was. Sorry, go ahead.
I just said that's painful. That's a painful human experience to be rejected and abandoned and disproved of and made to be seen as inferior. That's painful. That's a painful human emotion. But if it is true and you allow it to happen humbly and willfully, what happens to your triggered reaction to avoid that experience?
And it just goes away.
Yeah, you no longer are run by that.
Yeah.
So someone like myself and anybody else who's kind of become aware or experienced this awareness, it's like a no-brainer to be I'd way much rather be rejected. Are you kidding me? You reject me right now. You can hate me all you want. That is so great and easy compared to the suffering of hell, trying to be a slave to an opinion or a dogma. But it takes the willfulness to actually go through it, even if it's not literally, but the willingness to be rejected and abandoned and disapproved of, to just tell the truth about who you are, which is, I'm fat, I'm inferior, I'm not smart enough. You know, those fears of being seen as inferior are really what they all symbolize, essentially, is inferiority. The willfulness to come out as an inferior person and to be okay with it. It's like telling the truth. That's the key, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the main key, and that's what
that you in your heart don't believe it is worthy of shame, because you're a good person at the heart, and if that's not good enough, then what is? You know, so that willingness to do that, once you kind of open yourself up to that, it's almost as if you become you repel programming.
Yeah, it just become, exactly.
Because you're no longer sensitive to the programs that manipulate fear of rejection, abandonment, disapproval, and fear of inferiority. And you're no longer attracted to the stuff that says you'll be loved and superior. It all becomes like a funny sideshow.
Yeah. And that's why it's probably really, good. I'm glad it happened.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because you had to face that. You had to really face it for yourself. I think that is a common place that I get with clients is I lead you to this space and I can tell you this is where you need to go. But until you personally experience it, it's just information.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
And so once you've experienced the willfulness to just be real and truthful, and the willingness to be rejected and judged and seen as inferior, it's such a releasing experience. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, I think so, especially when I thought back to those couple weeks where I felt really free. I also feel like I come off the HCG and I was just so happy to let myself be for the first time, and then without everything felt free, and then I noticed, I hadn't totally released.
It was like artificial. It was an artificial.
It was artificial.
And you know what? The fact that you can see that now tells me, like, oh, that's a big deal, because you could see the artificial, but nonetheless, that temporary feeling that you experienced was not artificial. It was just under artificial conditions. You gave it only a period of time and space and conditions around that freedom. So you nonetheless felt freedom.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
for
huge.
Sure. So
you know it exists.
Yeah.
And it's possible.
Yeah.
That's huge to me.
Yeah, for sure. And then it was even more painful in a way when I went back into...
Yeah, but you can see maybe from this point where you're at in the moment that it was inevitable you were going to go back, because you never fully surrendered it all. You surrendered it temporarily or under this condition. This is why I say when I use those steps of recovery, it's not just you have to accept you'll never be thinner. You'll always be the same, but you have to accept that you could get fatter. And so many people gamble with that one. They think, okay, I'll do it because I know if I'm not binging and I won't have to go there. So they kind of repress or deny that aspect or kind of gloss over it, not realizing that, no, it needs to be like fully surrendered. And that means you have to willfully accept that you could gain weight, that it's not even you, that the body, that it is not, that it's none of your business, that if the body gains weight, people don't like you, great, good for them. Yeah. That full and complete release from the conditions of the body, not just kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I was going back to the steps, when I wrote them down before, and I was thinking, go through, like, I imagined myself, gaining, a lot of weight, because I knew that was something that was probably not fit, I wasn't accepting that.
Yeah, you were probably gambling, repressing some of the actual feelings of I can't handle that, but for now I'll do this and I'll let it go. Yeah, and then the truth comes out very often. Yeah, because you're still holding on to some of the food issues too. You know, there's more than just body image. There's the dysfunctional relationship that you have to food in relation to that body image. So because you're still holding on to a degree of that body image, you still have a varying degree of dysfunction with food that is projected out of that body image. Like, I don't want to gain weight. I shouldn't gain weight. So you're still to some degree tiptoeing around carbohydrates or telling yourself.
I wasn't the first time, but then as soon as I started living, I started to think about food, obsess about it. So I know, and that was something that was so, obvious, because I knew that my mind was, I had all this fear. So then I was translating to, what I was thinking about food.
You got it. Projects into that.
Yeah.
Do you see that more clearly now as well?
Oh yeah, it was instantaneous. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I was going on a diet, but I was thinking, oh my gosh, But then I wanted to eat more, and it was totally like I was gone into a crazy space in my head. So I knew it was just like they went hand in hand.
God, can you see how confusing it is if you didn't have? It's so confusing and disorienting.
Yeah,
so
it was
disorienting.
Totally chaotic. I was like, oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, I do not. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful I'm not in that space. Super. It's so intense.
Yeah, you just can't even function really in the present moment.
I just wrote last week, I was trying to describe this in the writing, and the way I described it was, it's like you're thirsty and you're so thirsty and you can hear the water and you go to get a sip of water, and before you know it, you've been sucked down into this horrific river that is so violent.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't even know how you got there. You just went to get a sip of water, and before you know it, that water just sucks you into this violent vortex of just horror.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Right?
Yeah.
I was just thirsty, and that's how it is with food. It's like, I just wanted a bite, and then there's this huge just energy. It is like being completely shoved down into a violent river.
Yeah. And just also like weird, I won't say cravings, but you could tell it was not a real craving.
Psychological.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Where you're negotiating, rationalizing, and not only that, but there's a lot of bitterness and anger that's in the energy of it. The resentments that are backed into that. The victim positionality is huge. A lot of people don't question that. They just are a victim. They experience that victimization and they don't know why. Once again, it's like you're holding a belief about what life should be, and that belief or image in your mind is different than what reality is manifesting, and you're feeling victimized by just reality. And so, right? And so you don't see that you heaved yourself off into the river.
Yeah.
You're the one who jumped in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but when you have this humility, so many people are like, I know that craziness. How do I get out? Well, you're going to have to come into this with humility to admit what you're doing sucks.
Yeah.
Because I think so many people praise what they're doing in their own mind. They secretly get gratification and a sense of betterment because of their dieting,
Yeah.
And their concept of I need to be thin for whatever reason, they get personal gratification from that belief system, and to question it would be like questioning your religious ideology.
Yeah.
Or your political position, something you identify by in your state of duality, and you'd have to sit back and actually question those things, and to do that requires the humility to actually admit failure. And that's usually when people reach out for help from me.
Yeah.
Because they know I'm not, if they've watched these YouTube videos, I'm not going to hold back. So, it's amazing. And when you look back and you see this, like you said, you can see that it was inevitable for you to kind of go back in, because you weren't fully out anyways. And that you had to actually take serious what direction I'd been giving you. It's like when I say you have to willfully accept gaining weight. You can't just say I'm okay with it. You can't just say it. You have to really question your capacity to handle it and to actually exist in it and to not feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you can accept, morbidly obese or being overweight in exchange for freedom of not caring, right? Because that's the thing. If you want freedom from not caring, you have to not care.
Yeah. You have to really not care.
You do. You can't just say, oh, I won't care because I'm gambling with the fact that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to. You have to literally not care. And that means that you're not magnifying the importance of gaining weight either into, I have to gain weight, I am going to gain weight, and therefore I am uniquely different in my weight gain that makes me special because I have to be overweight. That narcissistic inflation of the willingness to gain weight. You have to not care.
Yeah.
That means you're indifferent about it. You're not for it or against it. You just don't care. So if you can get there, what happens to the suffering?
It goes away.
Yeah, the next step is not caring about losing weight too.
Yeah. And that can be just as hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you believe in the fantasy that you are more acceptable, life is better, you're basically, once again, connecting to the body as the source of your life, not the essence of life itself as a source. You're connecting to the body as who you are and how you identify yourself. So if you've disconnected your whole entire self-concept from the body in any form, would you relapse?
If you say that again, if you disconnected your concept.
Your identity in any form from the body. You are not this body. You have nothing to do with it. It's spontaneously doing what it's supposed to do, whether you like it or not, or even acknowledge it or not, it's doing it.
Yeah.
Just think about that concept of...
Yeah, obviously you wouldn't be suffering because you'd just be letting it do its thing.
Now, any illusions about it are illusions, meaning if someone judges the body you're in and makes the assumption that because you're a body, you are less of a human, that becomes kind of a funny joke on them.
Yeah, it's their problem.
And they're the ones who believe in that. So they're the ones who are suffering. Yeah. Not you, the person who is receiving criticism. It's the person who's projecting that belief onto you that is in suffering. And that's why it's like, oh, you just feel sorry for people like that because they can't get past their own belief system. And the same goes for people that give you compliments. So a lot of people make the assumption that I am super into fitness and I am always eating clean and I probably do intermittent fasting and I'm like full paleo. They make the assumption about that because I have a muscular body. Oh, you must do CrossFit. I feel the same way for those people.
Yeah.
Only because they've bought into a program and they assume I have too. Because they don't know anything other than that. So how could they even have the discernment of programming?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and you just kind of say whatever.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, I take my dog for a walk. I do some yoga. I have some back problems, but this is like genetics and, years of training as an athlete in college. Yeah, I'd rather. Sometimes it throws them way off when I'm like, oh my God, you know what? If I could gain 50 pounds and lose my back pain, I would do it. And they're looking at me like, what? I'm like, oh yeah. Someone said if gaining 50 pounds would help your back. Oh, I'd be 50 pounds heavier right now. They do. She's crazy. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I am.
That's hilarious.
You just see the look on their face. Sometimes it's like, oh, I never thought about that. The whole brain goes, what did you just say?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
Oh, same with so many people with menopause. I'm 41, and a lot of people are like, oh, and I'd be like, my God, I'd rather be 50 pounds heavier than have a period.
Yeah.
You kidding me? I'm pumped for menopause. Give me some more visceral fat. I am all for it. If it means I don't have a period anymore, hallelujah, you know? Hallelujah. Make my hair gray. Give me a pot belly. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It only matters if I think I'm losing something because of it. And, you know, when you come out of that small way of thinking in the program, you're like, oh my God, if I make it through menopause, I am still alive. And my whole entire being at this moment has more to do. So why would I care if I have a pot belly?
Yeah.
I'm breathing hard. Oh my God, I'm breathing harder, Robin. Wow, I never heard someone complain about being alive is horrible.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, when you think about
you just clueless, right?
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. They're innocent.
Yeah.
Like, you're innocent. This whole thing is innocent.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much brainwashing for so long.
Programming. Mm-hmm. Social conditioning that you were innocently, and our brains have the potential to be programmed. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Right? Because that's just, it's like a dog.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of like, being consciously aware of what programming is, what the truth is. What's the truth here? If you're, you know, and the willingness to be radically truthful with yourself at all times.
Yeah.
Based on what you're radically aware of, right? Or you're truthfully aware of. Because you can't tell the truth of something you're unaware of.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's, but to be present with these emotions you're experiencing and allowing them to come forward brings them to a conscious place where you can actually then be honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's constant too. I feel like you have to be in the beginning, I'm assuming, be vigilant.
You do. The honesty. Yeah. You do. And you get to a place where you benefit very, very much so because of it. So it's like, doesn't make sense to not be truthful. Why would you freaking lie to yourself about something you're struggling with? What do you want? What do you want? A harder life? You want to suffer? You know? And to some people, they need to suffer to then be forced to tell the truth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, in all levels, like when you're first starting to get this, there's so many things during the course of one day that you could just think of something that you thought was, you know, something you didn't question, and it, you know, then you start questioning it. So it's like an all-day thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Especially with, you know, how dynamic life really is when you have kids, a job, a spouse, siblings, just neighbors, just how often we interact on the internet, just the overall activity we have just relating to everything.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be floating on water and just allowing all these waves to crash and hit you at all the time, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
And then once you do that, you realize that all these waves are kind of fun.
Yeah, just seeing where you're at. Yeah.
Just being, it's like I am what I am and nothing is truly going to make it any different. You know, when I first came to where you're at right now, when I was in that space, I realized I don't need I'm done reading self-help books. I'm done because none of it's going to help anyways. I am where I'm at. So the illusion that I'm going to get help from a book is just, It's more brainwashing, if you want to call it that. It's just, I'm only going to become aware when I experience what that is. So someone can tell me what that is, but which is great and all. But until I experience it, reading about it is, again, artificial. So when you and I are working together and I'm talking to you about what this is and where it's going to go, it's artificial until you do it.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, because I had all sorts of self-help books, and I remember listening to you say that, and it's so freeing also to stop doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it doesn't really affect again, go through what you've been through over the course of the last week, 2 weeks. Yeah. What you've experienced and where you're at today, would you say, could you have gotten that out of reading a book?
No. No.
Because you have to go into your current reality and existence, and you have to release things from your own position. No one can do that for you. Again, I could have instructed you to do it. Yeah. And I could say, here's what's going to happen when you do it. Here's what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel like you're going to die. Like Grim Reapers are breathing down your neck. None of that's really going to do anything until you actually experience it. And then from your own experience, you are aware now of what that feels like. Someone isn't just telling you. Yeah. My God, Robin, I totally felt, this. It was hard. It was so painful. I was crying and sobbing and kicking and throwing a fit. And then I realized I had to surrender. You have to feel that and witness it from your own experience of what that is. Now we're making progress. Yeah.
When you went into your recovery, did you ever have a point where you were resisting it after you felt, after you realized, had this realizations, and then did you go back into any resistance, or was it just...
No, but I was in a really unique position because of the suicide decision I had made, that this was essentially a form of suicide. I surrendered all of it all at once, and it was really intense. And ultimately, I had an out-of-body experience that have changed everything permanently forever. Yeah. And now 20 years later, I'm recontextualizing it and trying to explain it and studying other people who've experienced this, and now having to try to guide you to do the same thing. And, so I'm not going to say that that's something I see commonly. Some people, it's not one huge shift. It's multiple shifts that occur in a sequence that is unique to you. Even though it's the same thing, it's just what you're willing to surrender when you're willing to do it. And some things are unconscious you're not aware of yet until you become aware, oh my God, here's something I'm clutching onto that I'm suffering to hold on to out of fear of rejection, abandonment, disapproval, embarrassment, and all those underlying human things. And then you have to do it again with something new. Yeah. Because you didn't release it all at one time. There's not one way is better than another. The way I did it, I don't know if everybody needs to do it that way. That's a pretty dangerous way. Meaning you're going to commit suicide type of way. Yeah. Literal, yeah. So I don't think you have to get there to do this. But for some people, it needs to be there for them to finally freaking pry their little fingers off of their own narcissism. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, for me, it was very abrupt. Very, very, very abrupt. And really intense. Yeah. And I also didn't have children at the time.
Yeah, so it's easier to...
And I would have to say, if I'm radically honest, having children has brought me down significantly in consciousness, right? Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It could be, again, if we recognize the animal and the primitive nature that we all have, that there might be some sense in the fact that my level of consciousness is not as elevated or not as, what's so weird, I don't even want to say that because that sounds so like I'm so elevated, because I'm not. It's so animal. I'm like a mama bear at times, and how to stay out of my kids, claiming them as my own, and projecting my own reality onto them, and allowing them to actually have their own process of figuring this out, and letting them suffer, and letting them be unevolved. My own kids, and not, that to me has been a really important aspect of having compassion as well to our own animal nature. I think if I had never had kids, I don't know. I'd be ignorant.
Yeah.
In my awareness. Yeah. To really what it's like to be an animal with animals, living in animal land and surviving in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm just like you. I'm like everybody else. We're all doing the same thing. Every one of us,
Yeah.
I'm learning it maybe in a different position, but I'm still, there's still reality here. To pretend to be anything other than that would be pretty self-righteous.
Yeah. So
it's really a matter of getting rid of the untruth.
Yeah. So you just kind of have to just keep sitting with it.
Mm-hmm. And do it, and one of the ways I describe it is in real time. So we're no longer pausing it and then waiting 2 hours to rewatch it, or it's real time. So what you'll learn is that in real time, there's going to be times where you're going to go, and you're going to want to hide, and you go hide, and that's fine too. But then you're going to get another opportunity, and you're going to go, okay, I can't keep on hiding from this shit. So the next time this comes up, I'm not going to pause this and close my eyes and try not to watch.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually exist in it, even though I feel like I'm not going to survive it. I just am going to, I got to live this in real time. And so what I've learned to do is surrender to everything at all times as it's occurring, because I have no power to stop anything or to tell life what it should be. How do I know what it should be? I'm just a freaking parasite on this planet.
Yeah, when you say surrender it at all times, so anything that comes up, you just, willingly surrender it.
Yes, because it is what it is. And even if it's challenging for you, it's challenging for me. Okay. This is challenging. Notice how you don't judge it. Okay. Yeah. You have your free will at all times.
Yeah.
You do. So it's not like you don't have any choice in the matter. It's just when a life is occurring and it's unfolding, and you're becoming aware of what that is, you have a choice to either reject it or accept it.
Yeah.
Once you reject it, now you got to fix things, change things, reorganize. You're not fixated on that, right?
That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, as soon as you reject it, then you're
suffering.
rabbit hole. Yeah.
Correct. And you know what? And we could say in some cases that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like for example, when a woman I work with realizes she's in a battered wife situation, should she sit there and accept it and continue? No. Nope. Not when she realizes she doesn't want it anymore. The payoff isn't worth it, because she was getting something out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the payoff isn't worth it anymore. Should she just accept that is her life and that's what she is and that's what she's going to do forever? No. So sometimes you have to make a decision to make changes to your reality that you formulated and created versus a reality that's coming at you without any choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And you just have to accept either way that you have the free will to do what you wish.
Well, I definitely think when you put it on pause, too, it just piles up and I think that's what I did, too.
You're right. Yeah, it does pile up. And then you feel overwhelmed. There's an overwhelmed feeling that comes with that. And then there's even a kind of, it compounds, how it feels. It's like not showing up for an appointment because you are afraid to tell the person you can't make it, type of stuff, right? And then you feel bad that you didn't show up or contact them. And then you sit with that guilt all day, wondering why I didn't show up, and I feel bad, and I put them out. Now I'm embarrassed, so I'm not, that type of juvenile.
Yeah.
And that compounds, and eventually you're just hiding.
Yeah.
From your own suffocation. You're suffocating yourself.
Yeah.
And then can you imagine you blaming the environment for that?
Yeah.
Where that leads people.
Yeah. I mean,
For me.
Absolutely. It's
Life is too hard.
Yeah.
Now we're going to start abusing substance.
Yeah.
Because you're going down. That's a very dark place to take yourself into.
Yeah.
The unwillingness to tell yourself the truth, and then to blame and project your shame and guilt onto others outside of yourself. That it's them or this experience that is causing your shame and pain. Not to look at yourself, right? And that's very common with significant mental health problems and destructive behavior.
Yeah, you mean when, like the example you're using, if you didn't call or show up for an appointment, then you are blaming someone else at the end of the day because you feel guilt and shame.
Yeah, and you project it out onto the perimeter rather than actually expressing your own feelings about it. And it's easier to then blame. Well, I just feel overwhelmed because my sister has got problems and now I can't handle it. And now it's like you're not really looking at the fact that you were afraid to do it because you had whatever going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, can you see why someone would have to suffer so greatly before they start to actually face those realities? And then how are they going to live differently if they don't pick up the phone and cancel the appointment?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Despite all the fears that you might have about it, that moment, you don't want to be responsible about something because of whatever fear you're experiencing. Those are the moments you have to start to face in order for you to relive again. Put it off of pause.
Yeah. Well, it's like procrastinating as well.
Well, yeah, that's the feeling people feel. Procrastinating. That's how it manifests, is through the idea you're procrastinating. Underneath that are feelings, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Paralysis, really. I can't handle it. I'm afraid. I'm embarrassed. There's all those emotions we want to repress.
Yeah.
And I feel bad and I suck as a person, but instead of actually kind of coming to humility, grace, compassion for one's state of being and immaturity, say I'm like a freaking 5-year-old. My mom has always done everything for me, and it kind of enabled me to feel like I couldn't handle it. So therefore I'm sitting back like a child who can't do anything for themselves. There's compassion involved with this whole concept, right? Sometimes people have to sit back and blame the world for a long time and then become lifeless and friendless, and isolated from the world that they hate and project their own self-hate onto.
Yeah.
But yeah, what happens is you end up projecting all of that self-hate and hate onto the world as if the world is hateful. The world is too much. The world is angry, when you're really just experiencing those emotions for yourself, at yourself. You just projected that the world is that way.
Yeah.
It's the only way you come out of that is through humility, right? to accept failure and to then forgive yourself for it. So that's key too. It's not just admitting failure and having humility to say, I clearly have failed here, but it's the grace and compassion that it requires for you to actually see that you've done the best you could with what you were aware of, and that you maybe lacked discernment, maturity. Why hold yourself to some concept of maturity that you weren't quite at yet? If you had the maturity and you had the foresight to see that this is just going to compound, you would have called right away, right? It's easier just to call and face the fear of someone being upset at you or embarrassed than it is to sit in dark shame and guilt that you eventually project out and blame others for.
So true.
I know. So coming out of this, it's like you live in that real time is actually full of vulnerability, full of reality. If I have to cancel because I can't do this, it's not right for me, and they get upset, that's what I'd rather experience. Here's the truth. I'm not, it's like being asked to do something you really are incapable of doing.
Yeah.
Because someone said to me, okay, Robin, you have to write today for 12 hours. I'm going to be like, sorry, I can't. No, I have kids and a freaking dog, and I got to drive and get my daughter from this other event, and then I got to come back. Sorry, I'm going to be a big, huge disappointment.
Yeah.
That's easier, right? Than to be like, and then project all of my stress onto my children as if they're making my life hard because I have to write. They're making me go pick them up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
God, it gives me a headache even just thinking about that. It's like right here. My head is killing me right there.
Yeah. Well, I also thought a lot too, in the past, is with the body image, weight, and stuff, is never always projecting also into the future.
Oh, yeah, because that's a future goal. Your happiness is in the future. Totally.
Yeah.
God, what a good point you just made. That's a great point.
Because I would always live in those areas and say, oh, by the summertime I could do this and that, and then put this, and you never get there, first of all, and then you also...
You're chasing a mirage.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that too this last week, because I think that was starting to get, thinking about all those times.
Say that again?
No, I saw something about, this was a while back when I watched one of your sessions talking about defining yourself. Like, I remember thinking I would know exactly what I weighed at a certain time frame, and it was always projecting back into that and then projecting it forward, and it's just so crazy. I was just thinking about all the ways of...
And how many times you've actually been at a weight that you thought was going to be magical and it never really was. And you can actually look at that and go, okay, I had a moment of like, I made it, but then I had to continue to work as hard, if not harder, just to manage it. And then it made you, you can just look at it and go, there was never really a destination. Yeah. And I just want to repeat what you said. You really are chasing some concept of happiness in the future. So you don't currently experience it. You don't currently experience peace in life. It's always in some concept you fantasized in the future when, whatever that is, when I make more money, when we have a larger house, when I drive a nicer car, when I can fit into those jeans, so you're making a choice to not be happy. Presently.
No, you're miserable, and it's like you're not really there.
Yeah, it's like, here's my vision board. I'm gonna make a vision board.
Yeah,
it's like my vision board. Well, you're basically saying my happiness is on this vision board, and when I reach these, I will be happy.
Dive into that board.
Well, what you're not told is that there's it climbs as you get more stuff and acquire more education, that there's more to be had, and it's a never-ending process, because it's like as you come up there's people have more than you do, and now now your nice luxury car is like the low end of the luxury cars. There's like 5 more luxuries on top of your low end luxury car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and then not only that, but you have to maintain that level of workload, if not do more. So you're working harder and the payoff is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, it's like chasing a mirage. And before you know it, you have everything you want, or you don't, and you're miserable. You're just a miserable person, wasting your life away chasing these mirages that don't exist in your current reality. If you can't be happy with reality now, how are you going to know how to be happy with reality next?
Yeah.
Because you got to be able to do it now, unconditionally.
Yeah.
With the body you're in, with the house you're in, with the friends you got. You know, you've got to be able to go into what does it take to be happy really? Does it take ownership of stuff? Claiming your knowledge? You know, what does it take? Is it really about religious rules? What is it about?
No, it's about, complete acceptance.
That's what I have learned.
Yeah.
And that means complete acceptance with death, loss, failure. I filed bankruptcy. I had a business that was very successful. And 2008 hit, 2009 hit, and 2010 I filed bankruptcy. Lost it all. It was amazing. It was an amazing business. Gave up my house. Because we had 2. I had one for the nanny because we had a successful business. And I gave up that house and then foreclosed the one I thought I was going to raise my kids in forever. Then I moved across the country, rented a little house. Then I moved again. Lived in a 900 square foot apartment. You know?
Yeah, let it all.
I've been in it the whole time. I've been in this process. And I am so grateful. And at any point, if I had felt sorry for myself, what a waste of an amazing experience in life. None of it is, it's all luxury.
Yeah.
It's all luxury. Again, it's like people make the assumption, oh, she's happy. She doesn't have any problems.
Yeah. No, I know. That's true too. People do that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not about the house. It's not about the job. It's not about success and then failure. None of that is really important.
Yeah.
You know, everything I put my heart and soul into, I put my heart and soul into. I put my heart and soul into writing Weight Loss Apocalypse. Yeah. It's really not up. It needs to be rewritten. You know what I mean? I'm just using my own real life. I mean, there's so much more. I've been in religious indoctrination. I've had sexual trauma. I've had an eating disorder, suicidal, tendency there. You know, it just goes and goes and goes. And all of it to me is here nor there.
Yeah.
I'm just picking out the stuff that, based on the programming out there, people would say she's a failure. Her life must be hard. Well, that's only hard relative to programming. So if you don't believe in programming, none of it really matters. My bankruptcy discharge is, I actually framed it and have it on my wall with my degrees.
Yeah. No. That's great. Yeah.
It was so valuable to me, so important, and I'm very proud of it. It's like, fuck yeah! And, you know, just everything that's involved with that whole process was such a cool process. All of it, from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it.
Well, that's the way it feels when you accept it, all the entire process. You accept it, you accept it, you accept it. You know?
Yeah. That's a really good example as well.
You got it.
Yeah.
My mother dying of brain cancer, being present through the whole process. It was very, very vulnerable, very exposing. My sister, now that's been diagnosed with form of terminal cancer. As it progresses, I'm going to be right there. I'm not going to hide from it. Why hide from something and diminish the amount of love I have for her? Out of feeling like life is too hard for me.
Yeah. No, I totally,
You know, it's like job loss. If my husband lost his job, we'd have to sell this house. I could totally, so in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally live in a tiny little apartment if I had to. No big deal.
Yeah. So you go there, and so then all circumstances, whatever happens,
you accept it. You got it, because it's relative to. There's so much relativity and context and everything that why sit there and feel sorry for yourself? That's like wasting your life.
Yeah, it is. It's wasting your life. I agree.
Yeah. If I had to, I could totally live in an RV. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I know. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Why sit there and have your own narcissistic concept of life and feel bad about reality when you can adapt and and be happy.
Yeah.
And be present and be happy and always be guiding yourself. The loss of something else opens you up. Like when I lost the gym, it was freaking amazing. It opened me up to doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
If I still had that gym, I would be still working from 5:30 until 5:30.
You'd be a slave to it. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't a slave to it ever. It just was what I was doing. Yeah. I was in it, present. I loved it. I still love it.
Yeah.
I would have been dedicating my life energy to helping people get better posture and reducing pain through postural stuff and functional training and blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was a different plan for my future.
Yeah.
I had no concept of what that plan was going to be until it started to happen. And here we are. Hi. I didn't plan this.
Yeah. It's just the way it happens.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, that's what we're describing right now. What you and I are talking about right now, what it feels like. When you come out of programming, it's infinite.
Yeah.
There really is no wrong way.
No.
Or right way. It's just a way that has infinite potential, and you have the choice. And you know what? Every choice you're going to make is based on your awareness. And you just got to give yourself the grace that there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot I don't know still.
Yeah.
See what I mean? You and I are equals. And I don't need to know it, because it's useless to know that I don't know a lot and to think I have to know it right now, because I don't. Even if I studied my brains off, does it really, really change my emotional and current status? No. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if I'm inadequate and inept and someone's like, Robin sucks, she's a horrible person, she shouldn't be doing this, they're probably true. It's probably true.
I see what you're saying. Well, that was really helpful.
Well, I think what you're doing in this process that you're letting yourself go through is more helpful than anything I say. You know, if there's all I'm saying is, here, try this. And then you're doing it, and you'll notice that the awareness you have when you willfully do it for yourself, it is massive. And so then what I'm talking about is like, oh, wow, I understand what she just said. Well, that's because you're now doing it for yourself. And it's amazing how the process works. It's not mentally constructed memorization.
Yeah.
Right? And I could tell you, I could describe it, I could explain it, and you could go, wow, that all makes sense. Well, it's not going to really make sense until you do it. Yeah. And that's where I have nothing to do with that. This is not my karma. This is not I did it. I already did it. And that was what I needed to do for me. I can't do it for you. And I'm not working for you and with you other than the fact that you're the one who wants to do it. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, here's what you're going to do. Go for it. Good luck. Let me know how it goes.
No, that's right.
Yeah, so this is your process, dearie. And if you can feel that, the truth in what I just said, if you can feel that, like she's right. I have to do this every moment anything comes up. I'm the one that has to face it. I'm the one that has to be in real time.
Yeah.
And you're the one that benefits. You benefit.
Yeah, for sure. I like that real time. Definitely it's real time.
Well, yeah, and you just have to face the truth of however it is that you manage it. Just face the truth, whatever that real truth is. You know, because part of the problem I think a lot of people have is they might say, yeah, I'm going to live that real time, but I'm really afraid that I'm going to suck at it. You might want to just accept that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because you are. Is there something wrong with that?
No.
I don't think so either. It's the truth. So at least you're working with truth and not some fake concept of your capacity, which is all a lie anyways. And it's fictitious. It's inflated. Work with what you got. And if it sucks, that's what it did. That's where it is. And work from there.
Yeah. At least you're doing it.
Correct. And it's truthful. It's like, at least it's real.
Yeah. Well, this is great.
All right, let's get you scheduled to follow up, my dear.